It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, a half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark. We're wearing sunglasses, and Brian's riding shotgun.
Hey, I'm Bryan Elliott. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Brand. Today I'm here with the legendary Dan Aykroyd. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, sir. Strong words, but we, like the dinosaur, we've been around a while, so I guess you can use the word legend for the T-Rex. It's been around for a while.
Well, I believe you've earned it. I mean, you've been through it, and I want to talk a little bit about your origin story. I know you have a lot of fans who watch the show, but maybe also some youngsters who are discovering you for the first time. How did you get this job?
Well, what job is that? Writer, musician, actor, manufacturer, dancer. I guess I was fortunate that I had parents who saw a gift in me very early, and they said, he gets in front of the television and he imitates the announcers at 3 years old. There's something going on here. So they developed it. They put me with psychologists very early to develop my creative skills and visual skills. And then all the way through, they encouraged me to go into theater and to pursue the idea of being an actor. So I think it was parental assistance and support. It was also being in a community, living in a city that had respect for artists. I lived in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and so big respect for local theater. And with good institutions of education there, Ottawa University and Carleton University, great drama program at Carleton University. So just feeling my way up through that, but support at every level. In high school, I had a great teacher who saved me from being expelled, and he put me into theater. And then I worked with the Sock and Buskin group at Carleton University with really great directors, and then went on to start a cable TV show of my own with a partner, and then we went on to do CBC and then joined Second City. So all the way along, I was properly supported and found my place in all these great institutions. Saturday Night Live, then before that Second City, then Canadian Broadcasting before that, and the colleges that I went to, Carleton University and Ottawa Little Theatre, the schools of theatre, basically. So good support from the parental view, good training, being in the right place for what I wanted to do. And I guess that's how I started as a performer.
That's amazing. I want to talk about your entrepreneurial life as well, but let's go back in the chronology a little bit. So that's amazing that you had that kind of parental support. Did your folks do kind of traditional kind of stuff, or were they also?
Very interesting. My dad started out as at the University of Toronto as a road engineer. He trained as a civil engineer.
Very creative.
Well, what he ended up doing was quite creative. He ended up working for the National Film Board. He left school, and in Canada we have the National Film Board, which is a group of government employees, basically, who were hired to make movies about everything, short films, documentaries, some features. And so my dad was a unit production manager there in the 1950s. When the Queen came to Canada, there was a cross-country tour, and my dad was the person that would have to say, "Your Majesty, can we get that again? Can you step off the train again?" He directed her through her part of her trip, and then there was attrition, and the government let him go, and he had no job. But he had just met my mother, and my mother said, "Well, there's an ad in the paper for a civil engineer. You take a look at it." And he saw this ad. They wanted, civil engineer, please apply to National Capital Commission in Ottawa. It turned out it was the vacancy for the chief engineer on the Gatineau Parkway, which is the equivalent to the Blue Ridge Parkway. I saw him as a kid blast through a granite mountain and run dump trucks and bulldozers and, paying cops off on the side to get the loads done. And then they basically handed him $80 million and said, "Go build a parkway, Mr. Aykroyd." And he went away, and then 5 years later came back, and he said to General Kennedy, who ran the National Capital Commission, "Well, your highway's finished." And every cent accounted for, all properly accounted for and properly done. And so he has now, in Ottawa, Canada, a national monument to his name. And it is one of the most impressive bodies of road I've ever driven. Beautifully banked for motorcycles, granite curbs. And he was, then he went on, of course, to do others. He worked for Privy Council as Trudeau's office. an officer in the Privy Council, the first Trudeau. He was Pierre Trudeau's one of his policy writers, and he wrote the orders in council. Eventually, my dad did for two ministries that were really kind of unheard of in the 60s. The Ministry of Urban Affairs. Canada was growing, and it needed policy to govern their big cities. So my dad was the second busiest pen in the federal government. He wrote that legislation to go into cabinet and then eventually to the House of Commons and ratification. And he also wrote legislation for something called the environment. And back in the 60s, what's your neighborhood where you grow up? It's not the garbage dump in the backyard. Only the Scandinavians were calling the environment to climate and to ecology. And my dad basically wrote a paper, distilled 500 pages down into 3 pages saying, if we don't establish a Ministry of Environment in Canada right now, we're going to have a toxic waste dump in 20 years. So he did that, and he ended up as working for Hard Rock. I hired him in New York City, and my mom worked in wartime production of aircraft fuselages for the Hawker Hurricane. And so she was an executive secretary to the Minister of Munitions and Supply. And so both of them come from organizational backgrounds, and both of them knew how to write. My mom was a professional executive, typist and shorthand, and my dad wrote all this policy. So when it came time to do my writing, screenplay and SNL, I'd seen their model. I'd seen how hard it was that they worked, but how they got the pages produced,
Yeah, that's incredible. So the Aykroyds, a long line of underachievers. I mean, that's crazy. The amount of resume you just talked about in a very short amount of time, the achievements, obviously, that has had a huge impact on you.
I saw them work hard, my mom and dad, and I had lots of government jobs myself, and I did enjoy government jobs, because there were times you could feel productive, but there were also times when you could take your own sweet government time, and you take your time to do something. And now in business, I look for that and go, if people are taking their time, it's their own. They better take it on their own time and not on ours.
Yeah, well, it gives us time to maybe catch up, right, or gain market shares.
We have to always watch our partners, and especially in the vodka business and the distribution business, we can't let it go for a second, because it's kind of like the army. You give the general gives an order to the colonel, to the major, to the captain, and then by the time the private gets it, it's either mistranslated, forgotten, or there's unwillingness at that rank to do it. So we are always watching for that. I think anybody who's into a product that requires distribution, real distribution, not online, but real actual, trucks on the road, has to make sure that the product gets into the stores.
So from about what time period did you start feeling more like an entrepreneur? I mean, it sounded like you were doing kind of the traditional theatrical or production path for a while, the Second City, probably for those who don't know, I know a little bit about Second City. Tell people what Second City is.
Well, Second City is the premier improvisational company in the world. All kinds of people come out of there: Gilda Radner, John Candy, Eugene Levy. So many great stars have come out of there.
It's a farm club for,
Exactly, yeah, and it's a business. So I think I can tell you that from the first time I was hired as an actor, I entered show business. I had to manage my own career. I had to make my own deals. I had to, set my own terms. So really, it taught me a lot. I saw how the producers ran a business at Second City, how they squeezed blood from a stone, paying talent, and trying to sell drinks and ice cream sundaes to make sure there was a profit there to keep the place open. And thank God they did. Look, Stephen Colbert came out of there. All kinds of great stars come out of there. So I think being in show business, I got to see, there's a bottom line here that has to be reached, and tickets have to be sold. And in order for tickets to be sold, we have to go on the road. So what do? We take Catherine O'Hara, myself, 3 or 4, I think there were 4 of us in it, and we go on the road, and we traveled in the Second City Touring Company to the Terre Haute Federal Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana, and we played the work farm and the main the security 6 level, theater that they had there for the inmates. Might I call it a theater, auditorium? And this was part of the word of getting the Second City brand out there and saying, this is what we do. We don't only take for ourselves. We are going to go out and bring our show to people who really need it, who really need to laugh. and the press we got from that was very, very worthwhile. And it set up Second City as a brand that will do these kind of things in communities. And so it really taught me that you have to get out into the field for your brand to succeed.
Because if you can make it in prison, you can make it anywhere.
It was a very interesting night when Catherine crossed her legs. There was a cheer from the inmates. They were all mostly male anyway.
So I don't remember SNL before you. I mean, what number cast member were you?
Well, there was no SNL before us. I mean, it was I was with the cast from the very beginning with Gilda and Jane and Lorraine and Gareth. Yeah, it was us and Chevy. So it was Chevy, Garrett, me, Gilda, Lorraine.
Bill came later.
Bill Murray was later. Yeah. Now talk about a brand, like a human as a brand. You see him on T-shirts. You see him on. People put him on the side of cars. This is someone who really, he's kind of like the Kardashian. He has become a brand of comedy, of fun, of golf, of absurdity. You associate anarchy with his image, and I've seen him on holy candles that they sell now. Yeah. So,
him and Prince.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And he deserves it. He deserves it, too, because he's a lot of fun.
Well, that whole, the original cast, we could probably talk for 3 hours about that. Just magic. Did you?
The women were strong. Gilda and Lorraine and Jane. They were strong. Very great performers.
Yeah, almost like Lucille Ball-esque, where it's just like power women, power comedians.
That's right, and went on, of course, to establish the tradition for the women we see today: Leslie Jones, Kate McKinnon, Tina Fey, and Amy Poehler. You can name them all, and I love all their work. I still watch the show when I'm up at night.
Did you feel like you made it after you got that show up and running?
Well, I think what we felt was we were established as writers and actors delivering our generation of humor, and definitely Saturday Night Live in its 4 years gave us the forum and the success that enabled us to go on to other things, those of us who left. So definitely it was the defining United States exposure that you need to become a worldwide recognized as you have your work recognized worldwide. You got to be in the States. You got to be in the States to be recognized worldwide. And SNL was the main exposure. And after that, many great things came. A wonderful career I had in the picture business.
A little bit. Let's start with one of your favorite films, for whatever reason, that you loved.
Well, I think the one that I always kind of go to is Blues Brothers, because we did everything on that. We were writer, we had to write. I had to write, act, dance, be a musician, act in a production capacity. So that one there, we were the multi-skilled.
Was there any doubt from the people who were making that film that you could pull that off?
Oh, there was much doubt. Oh yeah, we were at, it was not a favorite project at Universal at the time. At the senior executive level, at the mid-executive level, we had two champions there named Sean Daniel and Tom Mount, who've gone on to great careers, and they championed the Blues Brothers, and they made sure that upstairs was okay with it, even all the way through as we exceeded our $28 million budget, which was pretty bad at the time. But today, that's routine. Are you kidding me? 28, they spend that on an independent film today.
Was that craft services or?
Now that's craft services on an Avengers movie is $28 million. But
what was the pushback? What was it like?
Well, budget, and then once we got the movie edited, we went out to exhibitors and they said, this will never play in the South because it's got black people in it. It won't play. You're celebrating African American culture, and we won't play in the black houses. So it didn't, and so what? It played around the world. It played in places where people are not ignorant, and of that culture,
Did you get pushback like you were trying to do too much? Being the musician. And
No. That was all fine. That was all expected. No, you're going to do. You're going to be paid that. You're going to do all of that and be happy about it. But it was just we went. The audience that loved it found it, and now of course it's pretty. It's a triple A. I like that one.
A couple little movies, you know.
Good ones too.
Blues Brothers.
Some good, yeah.
Well, mostly good. I mean, you sort of defined, you're still are a big movie star, but like as I remember you,
Well,
you know,
fortunate
from
working
80s and
actor,
90s.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Fortunate working actor. Yeah, not doing that so much these days, more focused on other things, but still play the music with Jimmy here now 40 years later, after the Blues Brothers went on SNL. Belushi's brother and I still play concerts with the hat, the shades, do the character, we do the music. That's pretty enduring for a mark right there.
That's amazing.
Some years, yeah.
You guys do tours every year? What's the
We
schedule like?
tour, we tour, you know, maybe 15, 20 gigs a year, maybe sometimes more, and, you know, when the economy is good. Because, you know, we're not cheap. We're 12 in the band. And
So let's go and unpack some of this stuff. You know, people who watch this, they're entrepreneurs. They're running their own businesses, or maybe they're working for the man right now, and they aspire to do something like what you've done. Is you know, taking a leap, and you've done something different out of maybe your comfort zone. And a lot of people will say maybe they'll get stuck because they're afraid of failure, and some will even say, you know, failure is not an option. But we've talked about on the show a lot how failure has to be an option, right? You have to get it wrong in order to get it right. I mean, some people win the lottery, that happens. Catch the Hail Mary pass, fine. But like most of us, we're making mistakes, failing fast until we get it right. So can you think about maybe even some of those from the early days, things that you got really wrong in order to kind of course correct and get it right?
with regards to the Crystal Head vodka,
I mean, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I kind of see your path, your journey as like basically going to school, you know, school of hard knocks.
still is.
Right? Learning all these things to get you to the point where you could launch a beverage business like that, right? A vodka business. What are some of the early mistakes that you learned, whether it's about, you know, human interaction or...
The first, I would, well, you know, for us it's gone pretty smoothly for the manufacturing. It really has. Our product is different from many of the lesser priced vodkas out there because we really take the time to put quality into the bottle. So,
And let's back up one step. So why vodka?
okay, well, let me get your first question out of the way first. Where I failed was in hiring personnel that were trouble. And my failure was in realizing shortly after the hire that they were trouble, but keeping them on out of compassion and trying to give them another chance.
Were these friends or...
No, these were professionals, and there were three of them that just finally had to go after a length of time with the company. And my failure was wasn't that I didn't recognize, wow, the way he's talking to that employee, or the way they talk to them, or the way they talk on the phone, or their manner, or what was that comment that just came out? I knew there was something wrong shortly after the hire, but you know, you want to give them a second chance. I give you a second chance. I give you a third chance. Okay, I give you the fourth chance. I give you a fifth chance. And it was giving them too many chances where real damage was being done at the company. People weren't returning calls. They were distressed at the abrasiveness of some of these people, you know, and suppliers and clients were being turned off. So that had to end. So that was a major, major failure on my part to recognize that, and it could have really caused failure.
Well, why do you think you did that? Because you have a nice guy syndrome, or?
I think so. I think I just, you know, I saw the worth in these people, and I thought, you know, gee, surely there's so much of worth there. But I then, you know, a very good friend of mine said, you know, he said, look, if their parents couldn't correct their behavior, you're not going to be able to. So I'm not their parent, and I'm just, you know, their employer. So that was a major failure. As far as the manufacturing, why vodka? Okay, one of my mentors and one of my great friends is one of the greatest men in America in finance and everything else. His name is J.P. DeJoria. I think you know who he is. Paul Mitchell Hair Care and Patron Tequila. Well, I was, you know, for a great business, you got to find a need. That somebody needs something. Well, Canada, the entire nation of Canada, needed better tequila than what they were getting. There were two major worldwide brands that Canadians could consume, only two in the country, no more. I thought, wow, why can't I bring Patron to Canada? you know, boy, and bring it so I can have it in my dock and have a margarita, and we'll bring it to the little government liquor store in my village. I don't care about the rest of the country, but I'd love to have it. And JP said to me, no, Dan, we were at House of Blues, another company he helped start, and one that I helped start. We were there drinking at the bar, and he was one of our first financiers there, and he said, have you ever tried the Patron? I said, I don't have good memories of tequila. He said, try this, and I drank it warm, smelt it. It was beautiful, smoky, smooth. And I thought, wow, I'd love to get this in Canada. And I said, can I bring it up to my local little store? Can we arrange a special license? He said, no, we have to bring it to the whole country together. So I brought it up to Canada, and we got the license to do that. And over the last, over the 10 years that we had it, now Bacardi purchased the company from JP for $4.5 billion, so they don't need an agent anymore up in Canada. They have their own agency, but we built it into the #1 luxury brand in Canada, 10% of luxury sales of tequila, and now Canadians get to drink Patron. So I established that. I'm looking around for other categories. I look at the beverage alcohol industry as a whole, and I look at vodka, and vodka, believe it or not, is a $50 billion worldwide industry, if you count. So I thought, well, okay, well, it'd be nice to get a sliver of that. How do we do that? How do we differentiate? How do we make it different from all the other products that are out there? And I began to research and find out that vodka, a lot of manufacturers in the beverage alcohol industry, not only vodka, they had glyceride, which is a lipid. It's a sugar. We all have it in the but they synthesize it. They add something called sometime glycerol. Now, glycerol is one thing and a food additive. Glycol is a cousin to that, and that's the coolant that they put in the Spitfire engine in World War II, So they add glyceride. Now, why do they do that? Well, they put it in there to sweeten the mash. So many vodka companies, they put additives in there, and they do it, it's really weird. You think, okay, well, you're a vodka company. You're serving your consumer a quality product, hopefully. It's gonna have a nice mash. It's got to have beautiful water. It's got to be well distilled and well filtered. Why would you need to put additives in there? And they go, well, people in the industry say, well, it's to mask the smell of the alcohol.
Shelf life or maybe something?
No, it's to mask the smell of the alcohol. What? Wait a minute. Don't we have nice water and aren't you saying your product has nice water and nice mash and good filtration and good distillation? Why do you need to mask your ethyl alcohol or whatever it is? Well, the consumer wants it masked. And then I said, what else do they put in? Well, they put terpenes in there. That's like turpentine. Well, again, many things have terpenes in there.
Sounds kind of bad.
Well, it's limonene, which is a citrus oil. They don't put enough to kill you, hurt you, but citrus oil can be a caustic cleanser in its raw form. So I thought, why do they put that in there? Well, it's to add a viscosity, Well, wait a minute. I thought you had a good mash, nice water, good distillation. Wouldn't you have a nice natural viscosity? Well, again, it's mask the alcohol taste. I said, okay, all right, what else do you add? Well, we add cane sugar sometimes. So I said, what if we do a vodka that's a pure spirit? No glyceride, no terpenes, no cane sugar. What would that taste like? Well, it's going to taste like alcohol. Yeah, we're having cocktails here. We tried it, and now, today, I can tell you that Crystal Head's notes are as follows. There's no terpenes, there's no glyceride, there's no sugar, and our notes are sweet, vanilla, dry, crisp, with a kick of heat off the finish. We've won more awards in the world than any other product. We have 11 of them, and we won the Prodexpo in Moscow, Russia. Wow. 400 beverages, excellent taste. In a contest we didn't even enter.
Yeah, a Canadian wins in Moscow. A Canadian
wins for vodka in Moscow. Wonderful, wonderful story there. And it's because we stayed with our conviction that we can do it. We can do this, and we can do it without an additive, any additives, and it's going to taste great in a cocktail or taste great straight. If you open up most, I don't name names, but a lot of other they smell like perfume or they smell like nothing. You open up mine, you'll have a soft, clean ethyl alcohol smell. It's just C2H5O6 and Newfoundland water. Why Newfoundland water? The original glacial aquifer from Newfoundland. It was the Wisconsin Glacier. It sat there above the earth 16,000 years ago, 800 feet above the earth, and that water melted into the porous rock, which is Newfoundland. and we draw our water right from underneath the still right up into the distillery. We are also the only vodka in the world that is manufactured by the last state-owned still in the product in the world. And of course, the head as a gift. Anywhere where we can take a special advantage of our special package. Nobody has a mini like ours either. We have these great opportunities that other brands do not have. You know, other brands of spirits don't have a special spike at Halloween. Yeah.
I love that story. What really fascinates me, and I want to understand more, is how did you do that, Dan? I mean,
I took my daughter's college fund and I stripped it and actually took all of the money.
Well, I mean, the money
put
part.
it into the vodka business.
I feel like these days, money is easy to find when you have something great. You have a great product.
Mm-hmm. But you have to give it away. If you want investors, you have to give it away. My family wanted to own this. So that was primarily where we started, was just by self-capitalizing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the first step, you know, in terms of getting it manufactured. It started with a sketch on a piece of paper.
But hold on. So, I mean, what is really fascinating and curious to me is, like, you have no business really, even before, and I say this as the skeptic in most of our heads, mm-hmm. Here you are, someone with a little bit of experience, bringing Patron into Canada, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the...
But House of Blues, we started House of Blues before we bought Patron in. So I was a co-founder at House of Blues, a co-investor. I sat on the board with Ares Capital Management. Our first investor was Harvard Endowment. I solicited the investment there along with Dr. Isaac Tygert, the founder of the company. Was on the board until it was sold to Live Nation. We had a great board too. The Kit Goldsberry from Pace Picante Sauce. Yeah. We had the Tony Reschler from Ares Group.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Here's the question I'm getting at.
Great people on the board. So
yeah. Well, and you're being very modest. But I get what I want to know. I think there's a lesson here, and I think maybe you can give it, which is, here you are, someone who basically has a very creative writing behind the camera, in front of the camera background, which then you transitioned into more of a proper business person, an entrepreneur doing new things. You partner with your friend JP and you start this thing and you have some success, you start House of Blues, whatever. But honestly, how did you do that? And I ask because I think a lot of people get stuck in I'm the teacher. I'm that guy. I'm the teacher, and that's all I do for the rest of my life. Or, I'm the whatever. Fill in the blank, whatever your occupation is. And yet you seem to be able to kind of reinvent yourself each time, like a new iteration of Dan, and do these things. How did you do that?
I think it's finding the right properties. And
did you study? Did you dive into it and just did you learn everything?
It's just in terms of instinct, finding the right properties. For instance, when Isaac Tygert came to me and said, Blues Brothers, it's a dormant brand. Nobody, the movies are over, the records are over, but there's something left there. This is something that people can relate to. They know it. It's worldwide. It's famous.
It's a franchise.
Let's start some clubs. Let's start. We'll start with one and see how we get to that. Would you and Judy lend your mark to that enterprise? And it just struck me as this could work. This could work. I felt to myself, this could work. So not only did we lend the property to him and license it, but I invested, and we had a great history, and we sold it to Live Nation, successfully saving 3,000 jobs. Was House of Blues the greatest business success I've ever been associated with for myself? Maybe not, but certainly for the employees, for Live Nation, who owns it now, for the towns that have House of Blues. It's a tough business, but we managed to sustain it, keep it alive. Planet Hollywood went under bankrupt. Hard Rock went under bankrupt. Rainforest Cafe went under bankrupt, not us. We stayed alive because of that tremendous board of directors that we had that hung in there till the very end and kept the brand alive. So that was House of Blues. Then with Patron, this great smoky tequila, again, another property unexploited in a territory. I thought to myself, Patron, unexploited in a territory. How can I hook myself to that, and how can I get it into Canada, and how How can I do that? That was Patron. With the head, my friend John Alexander, I was talking to him about the success we were having in the Patron business in Canada. He said, I always wanted to do a tequila and a skull. And I said, well, that would be disloyal to JP. I couldn't do a tequila and a skull. It's a brilliant idea, and it was done. That's a whole other story. That's a trademark dress infringement case that we won in federal court. But I said, no, I can't do that because JP has brought me Patron into Canada with me. I'd betray him. I said, okay, well, show me the bottle. We'll maybe I'll play around with that. So I thought in a couple of months he would come up with a design. I turned my back and watched the snow come down by his loft there in New York City, and in 2 minutes he handed me a sketch, and this was it. And it had a little grin, like it's a happy skull. Yeah. I said, this is brilliant. This looks like the Mitchell Hedges skull. And I looked at it, I said, I know exactly what to put in here. A non-additive vodka, purity. How could you put a non-polluted substance in this bottle? And this package sells purity and cleanliness and enlightened drinking perfectly. Yeah. You see, so it was finding the property. Finding the property and being convicted that would work, and I could get my name and put my capital behind it.
Smart, intuitive, sometimes overlooked. I think it's a very subtle but very important lesson about, well, some people call it white space, what's not being done. Mm-hmm. Steve Jobs is famous for, this innovation where he created, even going back to Henry Ford, who gets credited with that phrase, if I would have asked the people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Mm-hmm, and here he gives them, this assembly line, more efficient way to produce cars. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I want to go back to Blues Brothers for a second. It sounds like also you started small. You didn't dive in a giant leap. You said, let's do one.
Well, with House of Blues, we opened in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Well, but even when you lent your name and you started doing, maybe it was House of Blues first, or it was a Blues Brothers iteration, right?
The Blues Brothers Bar, and then our image, we licensed it to Live Nation, and we always had licensed it to House of Blues, yeah.
So was it one of those things, because it struck me that you said, I want to try one first. Was that try one House of Blues, or was that?
One House of Blues, yeah. Let's try the concept out, and let's not do it on too big a scale, because let's be reasonable here. Let's go out and raise some private money. So Isaac goes out with me, and we raise some money. I think it was a first round of about $3 million. Private, no big houses involved. And so we found a little location in Cambridge, Massachusetts, on Harvard Square, an old bar that had been there. And we tried out our whole theme, the decor made by folk artists, the blues and R&B theme playing on the jukebox, the Louisiana cuisine, all skewed towards that reverence for the South, the African-American songbook, and for the folklore of the South. The diamond plate on the bars, the John Bach thrones with the locks, the hammered tin, that you see, the feeling of the Indian and the art, East Indian art, and all of that. We tried it all out, and the place was packed from the time we opened till we had to move, and then. Next door to us was a little red house, and who was in that little red house? The guys from Harvard Endowment. And they ate burgers and drank beer and came to our club, and Isaac, saw them coming and going and sort of, we may be interested in expanding this. And from that, we ended up expanding it. There's 13 of them now.
A couple of follow-up questions. So one, why did you choose Cambridge, Mass?
An academic community, a community that would love and accept blues and R&B right away, knew what it was. A college town that sophisticated, ate and drank a lot, and sophisticated, and could accept Louisiana cuisine, understand the folk art on the walls, and also could relate to the music culture that we were trying to celebrate right instantly. It was a shorthand. We didn't have to explain what we were doing.
Well, it also seems really smart that you had the foresight to just start small, because I think that's another lesson that maybe we can distill from this, is that, and I don't know the whole history of Planet Hollywood, but as I remember it, whenever that era was, they exploded,
Well, they had public money right away, and we never had public money ever to date with House of Blues. It never was a public company. We had contemplated an IPO, but that was we had 4 or 5 of them open by the time we contemplated the IPO, and then, we had Mary Meeker and Henry Blodgett looking at the company, and then all of a sudden it comes to the year 2000, and we're not getting our phone calls returned, and then 9/11, the dot-com bomb, 9/11. It's amazing we survived in the hospitality industry to today, where we've got 13 of them still open. It's just amazing. We fought a lot to keep it alive, but.
Well, I think if I can pull out something just so that I see of it, it seemed very smart that you went in to test the market. And you proved the model.
Yeah, it was. We built a prototype. Yeah. That's what we did. We built a prototype. And I don't know that, I guess the only comparable, I could think of Starbucks, although they didn't start out to be a big chain. Their prototype was also something that was just a great product. They tried it out, and they had the people of Seattle going there for 12 years before it became a well-known enterprise.
Well, we're underestimating, but I see and hear this a lot. People who have what they think is a brilliant idea, they rush out, they create a bunch of them, and they put them up for sale, and there's crickets. Like no one comes, and they wonder why. And it's because they didn't stop to either test the market or prove the market, or they didn't, like you were kind of have that vision for like what's missing from the market, what's not here. Oh, a pure vodka. They didn't stop to think about the white space. What's not there, what people really want.
Well, that's what drives a great business. If you can sell it to them because they want it, and then if you can keep making them want it. And do it legitimately.
Yeah. So how do you now, because you had mentioned before, one of the mistakes was finding good people or keeping good people. How have you fixed it? Like, how do you find good people now? Because I think that's a very common problem that a lot of people struggle with. How do I find the right team?
Well, we're lucky, basically we've got the same people from the time, partners from the time we started, and some of the same personnel. We just watch out for the flags that we learned from the last time. Certainly, I think affability, personal affability, the way one person treats another, it's very important. We can't have a bad, a bad apple in the office. You can't have that. So, it's about how human deference is dealt with, and then of course skills, the skills for whatever job we're hiring the person for, and record. We got some great people working for us now. We have a guy who managed Jack Daniels across Canada working for us now. Terrific.
That's a really great point too, because the order in which you just said that is, I think, really important, and maybe people have missed it. You said you want good people first, and then if they have skills, oh, that's great. That's amazing.
Well, to hire someone, you want that affability, that human deference, that someone who's going to fit in and blend in and be a team player and not be detrimental to anyone. And we would look at the skill package second to I think personality and human respect for other humans.
Well, that's so on par with a lot of these top companies that we talk to. This idea of emotional intelligence being first, and then the skills and all that being second. Emotional intelligence is becoming so much more important.
You get a better business out of it if your people are happy. And not feel that they're working for some tyrant all the time. I think productivity it's bound to improve.
Well, and if you hire people, even if they're down the food chain, that have integrity, who are hard workers, I think it can come. Tell me what your opinion is. It can come from the bottom up, and it can come from the top down.
Well, top down is key too. We have to be examples. And that's something I think every executive works on that every day. Yeah.
So if we could go back to 20-year-old Dan, and let's put him in 2019 heading into 2000.
But 20-year-old Dan is here now, don't you? My lizard brain, 20 years, it hasn't changed at all. It's just, I'm just dragging around a more bulkier corpse. I'm here. Nothing has changed, really, and that my wife says, no growth. Well, you're the same. I'm sorry. That's me.
So let's pose it a different way. What advice do you give to younger people now, people who are graduating from high school, heading into college? What kind of career advice, if they want to pursue their dream, their passion, do what they love to do? What do you tell them?
Well, I tell them to prepare to basically, for the first part of their lives, of their working lives, to prepare to work 7 days a week. Prepare to work 18 hours a day, and I say to them, if you're working for a company and you've just started and a terrible job comes up that no one else wants to do, you do that job. You do that job. When I worked for the Department of Public Works as a flex track mechanic, a road surveyor, I remember there was an afternoon where we had to go and cross-section the highway, and there was a massive crater in the middle of the highway filled with water. And the crew chief said, I need an elevation. I have to have an elevation there. And because this was in my nature, I started on the railway when I was 14 years old, unloading boxcars and doing night shift and working double shift. I worked driving a mail truck. And when no one wanted the winter job of, can somebody show up in this blizzard, I'd get the call at 4 in the morning and I'd go. So the guy I look at this hole and I go, well, that's no problem. Get me some rocks. I weighted down my rubber boots. I took the rod, the survey rod, and I walked right down and I held my breath. I walked to the bottom of that 7-foot hole and I got the reading for him, waved the rod like I was supposed to. I got a reading all the way down till I was underwater and back up, So that exemplifies the commitment that you have to have, that I always had. Do the dirty jobs. And people notice that. People notice, wow, yeah. And the other thing on the film business, I've had a lot of people come into the film business, and I've had them hired as PAs. I've had them, a couple of them gone on to careers as producers. I said, never be seen sitting down on the set. Never be seen sitting down. The actors can sit, the directors can sit, the cinematographer can sit, all but don't you sit down. If you're a PA on a movie, you're an assistant, you're there, never be seen sitting down. Always be seen standing, always be available. If you got to sit down, you got to take a break, do it in the woods, do it behind a trailer. Never be seen in a reclining position. And generally for all of us in business and in life. Is Dan there, please? No, he's asleep. Standard instruction in my house. No, he can't come to the phone right now. Never admit the lion is sleeping. Never. Never. Never admit the lion's sleeping. Never. You're always up, you're always awake. He's not right here right now. I can't get him right now, but he's on the commode, or no, that's a human weakness. Are you kidding? Elimination of waste and sleep? We don't do that. We're always up. Yeah.